Hey, Geekscapists, I'm here with my good friend, Finn Jones. You might be familiar with him from some genre stuff. This is Geekscape, so you've definitely watched the Game of Thrones, you've watched the Iron Fist, but he's got a brand new movie coming out on digital and VOD October 7th, just in time for Halloween. It comes from our friends at Blumhouse. You trust them with horror? Well, trust them with this one. It's called The Visitor. And Finn, this is a little different than what I've seen you play.
Yeah, I'm British.
Well, I mean, we knew you were British. We knew you were British, right? Do people get shocked when they're like, whoa, you're British?
Yeah, they do actually. A lot of people, because there are a lot of people aware of me from Iron Fist. A lot of people think that I'm American and kind of shocked when I'm British, especially at Comic Cons. When I'm at Comic Cons, people often are kind of like, "Whoa, wait, what? You're English?"
I don't think you can play a major Marvel character and not be British. Like, you have to steal the jobs. Like,
it's true. Yeah,
you can't play Daredevil. You can't play Spider-Man. Like, I'm sorry,
they're all American. British. Yeah, are there any British superheroes?
Oh yeah. Yeah, there are a few. I mean, obviously there's Captain Britain, but he's kind of part of the X-Men universe, so they haven't really started that up.
But any that are on like in film at the moment that are kind of
in film. Dude, I'm gonna get docked. You just did this. I'm gonna get docked geek points on the show because people are yelling right now. It's all right.
Sorry, dude.
Listen, we've been doing Geekscape for 15 years. It's not the first time people have been like, "This guy doesn't."
We all make mistakes.
Yeah, I mean, I just make them regularly, and then I log them on the internet in video form for posterity. Yeah. So
they're just there forever.
Yeah, you can go back and count. I think this show has become a drinking game for geeks to be like, let's just see how many mistakes Jonathan can make.
I love
the
that.
Geek stuff.
Can we talk about this so far?
There's a mistake hosting the show. the guy hosting the show, that's a mistake.
That's an existential mistake.
This Visitor movie, got to tell you, speaking of mistakes, they make a couple in this thing. Geekscape, let me tell you about this movie, The Visitor. All right, it comes out on VOD. And first off, listen, I'm not a horror person. That's over at the other Geekscape show, Horror Movie Night. Those kids, they love the horror. But I was like, all right, I like Finn. I want him on the show. Like, let's talk The Visitor. Nice. I start watching this thing, and basically the plot is, well, you play a British person. That's refreshing. And then you are married to this Southern woman. You've been through a bit of family trauma, and you've inherited this. Oh, it always starts like this: old rickety house that was in the family. It's got secrets. And early on, there's a scene where she like straight up finds this old floorboard from when she was a kid. And this is not too much of a spoiler. This is in the first 10 minutes of the movie. And while you're kind of familiarizing yourself with all the work that's going to take to make this house livable, she removes like a piece of the floorboard, and there's an old doll in there. Like, there's always a freaking old creepy doll in there.
Yeah. It's very, very Wicker Man-esque as well. You've got the kind of the kind of like pagan wool knit thing on its face. It doesn't bode well, right?
None of this stuff
she's up to something.
Like, well, go ahead and see the movie, Geekscapists, if you like that kind of thing, because I think the teasers for the movie that are out, like, they show Finn kind of going up against a doppelganger. You really don't know who to trust or what to trust in this movie, what's reality, what's not. But I think that's kind of the fun of this stuff, is the kind of...
I think what drew me to the movie was it was more of a psychological thriller. And it was less about a horror movie that is kind of just there for like jumps and scares and gore and whatever. But it's more of a kind of a tone piece. I think when I was first talking to Justin about the movie, other movies that were in my head.
Yo, Finn, are you clicking on something right now?
Oh yeah, shit.
What are you playing with? No, show it to me. What are you playing with?
Just my keys.
I was like, what are you doing?
Yeah, look, I've got a dolphin on my key.
Geekscape is listening to the podcast version. I was like, this dude's he's doing the rosary right now. Like, he's straight up doing a rosary. Like, too much of that Daredevil has gone on him, and now he's doing a rosary. Okay.
Yeah. I was just creating some bad juju.
So go ahead. Sorry about that.
Speaking of Rosemary, so it was the kind of influences for me, at least, were Rosemary's Baby and The Wicker Man, in terms of like, it's that kind of horror movie. It tends to be a bit more cerebral and a bit more psychological and creepier in tone than just a kind of like, a shock and awe kind of horror movie.
But it's not without its jump scares. Like, there are some
jump
scares in this movie.
There are some moments, but it doesn't rely on that in order to be a horror movie. I think a lot of horror movies these days just rely on the roller coaster of like, oh, there's going to be a jump here and there. But this, I think it really gets into the kind of more psychological aspect, and also the more, that kind of building out a really strange and eerie town, which I think adds to the creepiness.
Yo, Finn, I'm gonna ask you to scoot forward so you look dominant in frame. I want to see you, man.
I know. I've been doing this for 6 hours now.
Dude, sometimes I get you guys and you're a little fried, and I'm like, oh, that's okay. But
I'm just a relaxed kind of just
we're gonna do this. Just chill. That's fine. Do whatever you want.
A real conversation.
Yeah, no, and that's all good. This movie sits with you, and that's kind of what I found challenging about it. Was I was like, what the heck was that? What should it have? I'm still kind of processing some of the things I saw. It's disturbing, so be careful for that. But I mean, I think that ultimately it was a challenge, right? Is that what you did this movie for? Is like, hey, this is totally different than what you've seen me in.
Yeah, I like Blumhouse. I think they've done some really good movies in the past. I definitely like Justin as well. Like his movies in the past, I think have really attempted to elevate the genre beyond what it typically is thought to be. So those were two things that kind of I was interested in. And then I also like the fact I like the fact that he was British as well, and that he was kind of like a fish out of water and a stranger in a strange land. And I like the character progression as well. The fact that that he kind of like starts as this kind of like unkempt, boyish man child that's kind of just got married and has just inherited this house and just lost a baby, and is kind of going through the process of becoming a more responsible adult. But that responsible adult leads to him kind of taking on his darker side, rather than a more positive side.
And the thing I really don't want to spoil this movie and start talking about things like duality and whether or not this character starts to trust themselves or get seduced by the darker side, like you talked about themselves. Like when you start answering those questions, you start to and that's the thing. It's hard to talk about this movie because it's predicated on really the twist at the end. Yes,
the twist at the end is really what kind of like makes the whole movie kind of make sense. And I remember when I read the movie, it wasn't until I got to that moment in the end that I was like, oh, actually, this movie's kind of interesting because there's all this nuance that builds up to that last moment. And you have to really understand those last moments to talk about and understand the movie. So
you go back and find those clues.
Yeah, you find the clues, and it also allows you as an actor to kind of flesh out that nuance in the performances, because there's all that stuff that's going on under the surface that the audience isn't aware about until the very end.
So when you're doing something, I'm just going to call it like elevated genre for like lack of a better word. When you're doing like an elevated genre, let's call it a fantasy like a Game of Thrones or superheroes. And in this case, horror, how do you ground that performance, especially knowing that you're building a design towards a twist or building a design towards a revelation for the character, and you're trying to keep it grounded. And as an actor, you're trying to keep in that moment.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, that was the main concern of mine throughout this movie, and also like early on in the conversations to Justin, I was like, how do we make this movie feel authentic, and how do we make sure that at the end the audience isn't laughing at the twist, but is actually taking along? It kind of is a bit more of an aha moment than a kind of what the fuck moment, And I think in order to do that is you have to really make sure that the characters have strong intentions throughout. And then you pepper in all of this nuance and kind of all these looks and hints early on and throughout the movie, so that when we do get to that moment at the end of the movie, if you want to rewatch the movie, you can see that it's all there, behind the surface. And that was something that Justin was interested in building out, and so was I. And so really together with me, Jess, and Justin, we really worked hard to kind of elevate this movie beyond what it was originally in the script. Like we were adding a lot of things throughout the process and fleshing out the characters constantly throughout the production.
I think that's important, so that you don't just make, like you said, a roller coaster ride where people are like, yeah, it was fun. A bunch of people got what was coming to them. Kind of
it's important.
Coming though.
Yeah, it's important, but also it's not necessarily allowed. We were lucky that Blumhouse gave us the creative freedom to make these changes on the fly constantly. You know, we were constantly updating the script on a daily basis. Now, there are some production companies that you can work, studios that you work for, and it's just like, the script is the script. That's what you got to do. And if you're in a situation where the script doesn't really, it's kind of like, you know, there's big red flags as a creative, it's very difficult to try and work with that because you don't have any say. Whereas at least with this movie, I felt that there was Blumhouse and Justin and Jessica were all very open to kind of having, you know, a creative input.
And is that one of the, I mean, how do you even approach that without insulting people? You just have to be like, I mean, but I think like a striving for a more texture.
I think that's what it is. I think it doesn't come from a place of like, you know, judgmental criticism. It comes from a place of like, well, we've all signed on to do this movie, right? We all want this movie to be the best possible movie that it can be given the script that we're given. So let's make it that, and let's have the creative freedom to do that, you know? And so I think, and we were very, professional about it. Like you know, Justin would air his concerns, I'd air my concerns, and we do it in a diplomatic way because our intentions were to create a good movie, you know? And so, and I'm a performer that is very free from ego, you know. I'm very good at taking on criticism. I'm very good at being self-critical. And so I'm not a performer or an actor that, you know, someone will say something to me and I'm going to be like, oh, how dare you say that to me? I'm offended, or that hurts me. So now I'm going to like, that's going to affect my performance. No, if anything, like I want you to be frank with me. I want you to be open with me so we can get the best out of a performance, a script, a direction process. You know,
when you come onto a film, like just establishing that trust has to be pretty important, where everybody says, hey, like no BS here. Can we just try and make the best movie possible? And he goes, check him at the door, please.
And that's why I think, you know, it was nice for me and Justin to have a conversation before I signed on to the movie. And so I could sit down with him and I could pick his brains and see what kind of director he was. And I realized that he was a director that I could be frank with and he could be frank with me. And so I was like, well, yeah, I think this is something that could be kind of cool because we're on that same page together.
I just had Neil LaBute on the show. Are you a Neil LaBute fan?
Like
he did the remake of The Wicker fan. He did the remake of The Wicker Man.
I haven't seen that.
Nicolas Cage. There's a lot. He's a, you know,
I love Nicolas Cage.
I love him too. But a lot of cooks on that kitchen. A lot of cooks in that kitchen is what he was talking about.
Yeah.
But they weren't all with the right cooks. Meanwhile, you have his smaller stripped down movies, like his first one, In the Company of Men. This most recent one that he did, and they just almost feel like stage plays. They feel like mean plays where it just felt. I recommend Neil LaBute to you. I also saw that you're a fan of Werner Herzog. We had the producers of Grizzly Man on the show.
Oh, great. Fantastic.
Man, that was talking to the producers of Grizzly Man about.
Yeah, I bet that was insane.
He's a genius.
He's a genius.
And
he's a genius.
I can interview a million artists on this show, people like yourself, and like strive to understand them, but everybody has to have their own unique voice and genius. And all I can do is kind of like sit there and go, oh, tell me a story about this person and like what can I glean from it? You watch this,
but you're right. It's too many cooks in the kitchen really often spoils a creative process, especially
the lack of trust.
The lack of micromanagement for one. You get a lot of micromanagement where people just like, you know, these, you know, you get these kind of execs that kind of sit in their ivory towers and don't have any kind of real relationship to the creative process, calling all the shots. And then you have the creatives on the ground that often feel like tired. They're just like, what do we do? Whereas this movie
paid for, but it has to change. You know, does that make sense? Like,
right? Well, exactly, yeah. But with this movie and with Blumhouse, they really allowed creative freedom, which you know, I have to say, just from my perspective as an actor, like that's all you can ever hope for with any kind of studio that you work with, is that they trust your creative. They trust the reason why you've been hired. You know,
and. How early in the process do you start up on that? Like from, I mean, because I'm guessing through rewrites, rehearsals, and getting ready for this thing to be cooked and put in the oven, like the earlier you do it, the better.
The earlier you do it, the better. But sometimes you don't have time. You know, for this movie, we didn't have time. You know, we were really going at it on a day-to-day, and we had a lot of we were going through COVID, so we had a lot of disruptions because of COVID. We had disruptions because of that strike, the IATSE strike. We had disruptions because of a recent storm as well. So we were constantly shutting down, starting back up again. It was a real. It wasn't an easy shoot. It definitely wasn't an easy shoot, but I think we were all committed to. We were still committed to making a good a movie as possible. So we all, and that was nice, man. It's nice to have people that creatives are all on the same side, you know, that want to that want to create the best vision that they can.
That helped bolster y'all at any point where you're like, you know what, F it. The movie's about like some weird curse stuff going on. Let's this thing seems cursed. Like let's just kind of like roll up our sleeves. Everybody's in this together. Does that help establish that kind of trust?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, we were all in the shit pit together, so we were just like, let's just roll up our sleeves and make the best of it. You know,
is that a British phrase?
A shit
pit?
Shit pit.
Yeah,
a shit pit. Yeah, you're in the shit pit.
That's a British thing.
Shit. I think so. It must be a shit pit. Yeah, shit pit. Shit.
I mean, it's pretty clear what a shit pit is, but I'm down. It sounds like something that you're like, the shit pit. I'm like, okay, well, let me write that one down.
Yeah. Oh, there's a lot of British isms that I can enlighten you with. Shit pit's a good one though.
You're pretty political. What's going on over there in England?
I don't know, man. I've been living in New York for the last 6 years.
Why the change? You came over to shoot what? Iron Fist?
I came over for Iron Fist. Yeah. I came over for that world, and then was here for like 3 years and established a life for myself here, a good community of friends, and I really enjoyed it here. I really enjoyed living here, so I ended up making roots.
It's got an energy to it. I lived there for a few years when I was in school, and it just has this energy that you can't replicate anywhere else. Sometimes I wanted the off switch where I was like, okay, when I close the windows, that should be it. But it's never.
It's a lot. It's always on, and that's part of the charm of it. And you need to know how to balance it. And I balance it. I get out a lot. I go camping, and I travel back and forth. I love it here. But back to your question, what's going on in England? Well, I'm not really sure. I mean, what's going on with the world right now? It's all kind of a bit. Free fall, right?
I was reading about some of the work you've been doing, Syrian refugees and this, and I mean, we kind of it's almost like your film shoot here, Finn. We kind of have to tie in together and lock down and make sure that we're not just falling into like
crazy my philosophy
authoritarianism.
That's happening.
Yeah,
there is global authoritarianism happening, regardless whether we like it or not, and most of it is actually corporate authoritarianism.
Sure,
we can't. That is the world that we are now living in. We have been living in. It's just being ramped up right now. What we can do from an individual level is just create change on a local level, and that's what I've learned over my life so far, is that when I was younger, I was always trying to change the big, change the macro. And what I've realized is that unfortunately that's pretty hard to do. But what you can do is change the micro. You can have a positive effect on the people in your community. You can have a positive impact on your friends, your loved ones. And if you do positive and you give positive and you try to create change on a micro level, the hope is that will eventually ripple out in meaningful ways that can actually hopefully affect the macro. But that's my philosophy, and that's how I kind of go about my life, and that's how I kind of engage with politics, is just try to do everything local.
You find the opportunities to be like, hey, I can change a mind at a time. I can make a
change mind at a time and
relationship,
and help people out. Just how do you go about your day-to-day life? Do you want to create joy and do you want to like help people out? Or do you want to be self-centered and just extract from those around you? Because that's what we're seeing. We're seeing the reason why the world is the way it is because people are just wanting to extract resources, and not give back to communities. And that's why we're in the situation we're in. But if we care less about extracting and more about creating and giving and fostering and nurturing, maybe we can change things. But
we have this say, Geekscape has the motto, don't hate, create. And I just got sick of the sound on the internet where everybody was like, well, I'm just going to tear down. I see this thing. I don't like the new Star Wars. I don't like the new Marvel. I don't like the new thing. I'm just going to tear it down. And I was like, the energy put into this. I said, we are wasting the potential of an entire generation of people who are taking an easy route. I mean, dude,
these people are creatives, man.
Some of the stuff they write that is hilarious, and I was like, if that was just pointed towards creativity and positivity, you'd have the funniest show on the internet.
Support processes. They may not be the best. I think back to Iron Fist season 1, right?
Yes.
We all really put out. We worked so hard on that first season. We worked hard on all of it, right? Me in particular worked so hard on that thing, and it didn't turn out the way that we hoped it would. Sometimes that shit happens.
Sometimes it just comes out and the bread doesn't rise.
It does, exactly.
But season 2, I feel like y'all pivoted, and season 2 is like, but people didn't give season 2 a chance. The cliffhanger at the end of season,
the shows were cancelled within a month. Yeah, I know.
The cliffhanger at the end of season 2 is like, holy shit, they just hit the show that is going to let's do this. Let's do season 3.
We course corrected, and
like
then
crazy.
we were going to go. But back to what you were saying is that what people need to realize is that we're all well-intentioned people that are trying to create art in the world, and we're trying to manifest something positive, and we're trying to uplift people. We're trying to tell good, interesting, entertaining stories. And the level of hate that gets poured onto to artists and creatives when it maybe doesn't turn out in the direction they hoped, it's like they just create a genocide. It's like, hold on, man. Like, let's all be supportive of each other here, because we're all trying to do something positive with our lives. And
it's a guy with an iron fist, folks. Like, I love the character. I grew up with this stuff. I love it. Yeah. But sure, Shang-Chi probably should have come first. We get it. Like,
right.
But like,
and there needs to be better representation in film, and there is now.
We are all for that. I think that the people are like, oh, season whatever it is, the phase 4 of Marvel is too much of this. We got the She-Hulk, so we got the Shang-Chi, I was like, yeah, you mean a bunch of minorities and women? Like, what's the problem there? Look outside your window. That's what it looks like, and we should see them on screen. And I'm excited.
There should be better representation. There should be better representation in television and film. Period.
Okay, so Iron Fist came first. You got the Chuck Norris before you got the Bruce Lee. Okay.
Yeah. But I don't even think that's what it is. I think really the first season, there was a lot of creative challenges and it didn't live up to the expectations. And I think that came down to scheduling conflicts. I think that season of television was rushed because we had the Defenders that we had to film straight afterwards. We had to film the Defenders. We had all those other actors locked into that schedule. So we had to film those 13 episodes of television in that set time. And unfortunately, we just didn't have the time to do what was expected and what was desired, which was a kick-ass, amazing kung fu show and martial arts show. And and the reason that show failed was because of the time constraints, because of bad scheduling. With season 2, we really understood what the flaws were, and we worked hard to course correct the show. And in my opinion, we did. We did a fantastic job bringing that show back up to code. Agreed. But unfortunately, just like a month after that show had been premiered, all of the shows got deleted, because Disney wanted to create their own series. They wanted to do their own thing on their own platform, which is understandable. But it was just a shame that it kind of, just when we were like out of the gate, ready to kind of go running, we were just like yanked.
And Finn, like when you start to see Charlie show up in a Marvel project, you start to see Vincent D'Onofrio show up in a Marvel project. They're bringing those Netflix characters back.
Great.
Reading that rumor over the summer, though, like you're the one they wouldn't bring back. Like that's got to be a rumor, man. Because like you'd do it, right? Like you'd want another chance at that.
Of course, I would. I'd love another chance. I'd love to. I care about that character deeply. I care about Danny Rand deeply. I believe in that character. I think there's a lot of work that can be done. I'm also very there's something about the underdog. I love the underdog narrative. I love the ability to like prove someone wrong, and I want to prove all those motherfuckers wrong. I know I have it in me, and I know that I can give the Danny Rand performance that fans want, and I know is possible. But that's just the way it is, and I'm really, really, really happy that Charlie has his job back, that he's going to be Daredevil again. I think he's fantastic for the role, and I'm so excited to see him portraying that character back on screen again. From my perspective, I would love to come back, but I think it have to be in a way that is in line with that makes most creative and narrative sense. And for me, I've been thinking about this. I think it would be really cool to see a Heroes for Hire series, to see Danny and Luke back. That's the way to bring him back. But then also to have Colleen come back, and for Colleen to still be the Iron Fist. She should be holding that fist. She should show up in maybe Shang-Chi. Maybe, it doesn't have to be Shang-Chi, but it could be whatever Marvel property. But she should have the Iron Daredevil. Fist.
They got 18 freaking episodes. Like,
she should be movies. She should be Black Panther. Colleen Iron Fist should be fucking A1 movies. She deserves that, and she's great for doing that. And I would love to see her show up for something like that, and then to have Danny and Luke show up on their own series, and then over the course of seasons of televisions and films, you see those characters come back together again in a dynamic and real way. It allows for Danny to have redemption. It allows for Colleen and the Iron Fist to have her moment. For me, that makes the most creative sense. But
And that's the underdog story. And I mean, when
exactly.
Matt Fraction wrote that great Hawkeye run, and they used a lot of it for that Disney Plus show on the Hawkeye, and he also wrote like one of our favorite Iron Fist stories with the
brilliant, the Immortal Iron Fist.
The Seven Kingdoms of Heaven tournament storyline. It felt like, okay, if they do this in season 3, we're all going to lose our minds.
Yeah. But you have to have the right budget for that, though. You have to have the right budget. That has to be a movie. That has to be a movie. That can't be a TV thing. Because if you're going to do that right, it has to be, kind of, Black Panther, Spider-Man level of movie telling. So it's interesting. It's all there. The possibility is all there.
Have you written the pitch?
About it. I'm writing it right now.
Have you written it? Like, let's write it out. And
I'm just a fan, man. Look, I'm a fan of the characters. I'm a fan of the stories. And if I was an audience member, like take my acting ego out of the equation for a moment, right? I love the character Danny Rand.
What I can tell from the last 25 minutes.
I try to leave it on the back burner.
Sure.
But as an audience member, as someone that loves the Iron Fist and loves Danny Rand and wants to see better representation in film and television, I think what I just described is the best way to bring all these characters back in a way that makes everyone feel happy and course corrects all of the.
And it's not a Danny Rand. It is a Heroes for Hire. It is a. It is a. I mean,
Luke and Danny on the streets.
He's been on an Avengers team. Like, just have him in there. Like, you can be one of they'll call you up. You can do one of those teasers in a weekend. Those little tags they put on everything. Like, they got to have the tags. Like,
why
they'll call you up, be like, "What are you doing Friday? You want to film this little tag?"
Sure.
We'll put it on the end of some show, and people will be like, "Oh shit."
Yeah.
Like,
we'll see. And I think, judging from the fan reaction, I do think there was all of the negative critical reception, right? And that lingers and that's still there. And I understand that. I really do. I get it. But I do think there is also a very underrepresented group of people that love the character, really understood what we did with the shows, respected that the shows weren't exactly what they should have been, but they see that that there is a lot of promise there. And I think there's a lot of good inertia, to bring this character back in a meaningful way that feels right. And I just hope I hope I'm there to see it through.
We're going to do this. Okay, let me write this letter to Kevin and just be like, Kevin, listen, enough of that. Like, let's not. Okay, let's see. Finn is down.
I'm down.
Yeah, Finn's down. Okay, Finn is in. Okay, Finn's in. I'm gonna send him a text. Be like, Finn's in.
I've also had like a lot of time away. Like it's been 5 years since I've played that character and I've been in that world, and like a lot's gone on in those 5 years. There's been a lot of personal development. There's been a lot of creative development, and I definitely feel just from an artistic standpoint, I'm ready for that challenge again. There's been a lot of things that I've learned. Like I was thrown into the role of Iron Fist.
Like thrown into before or something like that.
No, not a week. Right, but it was it was a big shift in a short amount of time, and I wasn't really given like the right level of scheduling to kind of get the most out of what I could give. And at the time, it was like I just boarded a freight train, and the freight train was going 200 miles an hour. Yeah, it's gone, and I'm on it. And suddenly I'm on this train, and I'm having to like figure out how to fucking steer it and navigate it, but the train's moving. Right, and I did it, and it was fine, and I got through it.
And then it got better.
It got better, exactly, because we all, as we were on this train, we all realized, okay, this is what the train is. But now being off that train for about 5 years now, I've really, there's things that I've just learned about myself. There's things I've learned how to approach my own discipline, my own craft, in a way that I think if I was ever to reprise the role, it wouldn't be the same as before, because there has been. Those years have passed that have given me a lot of insight.
And on a creative level, I don't think many of the creative teams are coming back. You got a few writers here coming back to some of those Disney Plus, but the Netflix creative teams.
I'd love to see Raven come back, man. I thought like working with Raven for the second season, like that guy is. He's a dear friend, and I think he's an amazing showrunner. The success and most of the success for the second season of that show was down to Raven and his passion and his hard work. He loves that character more than anyone, and he really wanted to do that character right. And so it would be nice to see Raven brought back in some capacity as well, if that was to ever happen. Just because I just know how much of his own heart he put into that as well, and to not have that show continue after all of the hard work that we all put into it was, it's life. That's what happens sometimes.
Damn, Finn, it feels like 5 years later. This kind of still burns, but let's text Feige. Let's tell him that you're in. Let's say Raven should come back. He did a great job on.
There's unfinished business. That's all there is. There's unfinished business. I'm not burned by it. Do you know what I mean? Like life goes on. You know, like there are many other facets of my creative output that I've delved into since the passing of that show. Like I'm into music as well. Like I'm not not here twiddling my thumbs, you know. Like
I see you on Instagram DJing and doing different things.
Like I have a life, but at the same time, there's also there's a part of me that there's unfinished business creatively with Danny Rand that I would love to see.
What did you just do? That's why. Finn, listen, I love talking to you, man. We could get into the social stuff. We could get into other projects. Like there's a million things I wrote down that we didn't even get to, but.
Next time,
maybe he comes back. I want to shoot you one of these "Don't Hate Create" shirts because
I'd love that.
I think we're aligned with the same message. Dude, good luck with this. Geekscapists, again, like I told you at the top of the show, watch The Visitor on VOD and digital October 7th. If you want to see Finn do something you haven't seen him do before, use a British accent in a project. I'm kidding.
It's true. It's a novel thing.
Dude, Finn, thanks for coming on Geekscape, man.
All right, really appreciate it. So all right, take care. All the best.
Bye.